Hey everybody, welcome to Season 3 of Song Revolution. Get ready to ramp up your songwriting. Hey guys, welcome back to Song Revolution. This is the month of July 2025, the year of our Lord. Hope you're having a great summer so far. It's a great time here in Nashville, Tennessee, and we're just so excited that you're joining us on the NCS 2025 Songwriting Challenge. You can still download your PDF and follow along. You can go back and pick up the first 6 months if you want to. We've got 6 months of podcast episodes that follow along thematically in the challenge. And I'm hearing so many people say it's just really blessing them. I know it's blessing us because it's given us a real format for our podcast, our monthly training, our free monthly first Monday of the month training, and really for our socials and emails and everything that we're doing. It's really helping us stay very focused because what we want to do is help you level up your songwriting so at the end of the year, you don't even recognize yourself in your songwriting. You're like, wow, that was so incredible, by adding that information, skills, knowledge, and insights in every single month. So really pouring it out for you so that you can level up and fulfill the call that you feel on your life. So we're talking about how to make it in the new music business. We've had a couple of weeks so far, how music works now. Chris Weinberg was amazing last week. Love that guy. And now I'm back with Bryant. And we're going to pick back up on what we were starting to talk about 2 weeks ago, mapping your next steps in music making. So Bryant, how do you feel that the music business has changed?
In 2025, the year of our Lord, was such a strong way to start. I like that.
I went liturgical or something. I don't know what.
Wow. I mean, man, just since I've been around and involved in the music space, it's changed drastically, right? Just in the last 15 years, let alone the decades that have gone by of different eras of how to run your business as a songwriter, how to run your business as an artist. How do people get paid has totally changed, completely different. How do songs get pitched to artists? The list goes on and on, right, of things that have changed. Streaming and how music is consumed. So, yeah, I mean, we're in the era of, I feel like we're right in the middle of the current season of how music works, but also this new, I feel like there's a new way of coming again every 10 years or so, right? Everything kind of changes. So yeah, it's all different, totally different landscape. Streaming probably being the most prominent that people would recognize as how people consume music.
And I think just even the software and hardware that has become so much more accessible.
Oh yeah.
Because you can create a whole master on your phone. You don't even have to go to a studio. Now, I don't know the quality. It kind of depends on the user, right? But just the digitalization of this whole thing that's really, you said it a moment ago when you were kind of listing everything, just the fact that anyone can have a music ministry career. Anyone.
Yeah.
I used to be a gatekeeper.
Yeah. I'm sure that's insane for you, coming from back in the day, yeah.
I mean, I think as an OG, I've transitioned fairly successly, to the digital thing.
Yeah.
But, to innovate is life. But you referred to it, just to that anyone can have an artist presence, and that's what digitalization has done for us. I was a gatekeeper at Star Song Media, VP of Publishing, then at Integrity Music. I was the guy you had to, pitch to. I was the one who was making the decisions of which songs went on records. And if you didn't go through me to get on a record, you didn't get on a record.
Yeah.
And now you can make the dang record yourself,
right,
and you can get it out, and you can publish, and you can do you can take all the steps.
Yeah.
Now, some people are going to be much better at it maybe than you are.
Right,
But
right.
it's so democratic now.
Yeah. Well, and pros and cons, right, of the barrier of entry is much lower. But what that means is that we have a lot more music that's mediocre or poor than we do, quality. And so there's a lot more opportunity. There's a lot more ease of access for people who want to make songs and produce records and all that. But we're hovering in this kind of sea of like mediocre stuff, and the stat changes all the time. But thousands on thousands of songs are released every day to Spotify and streaming. So we have this all of a sudden this like threshold of tons and tons of music that's available, but we're still fighting this thing of like rising above the noise, right? You have to create something that people want to hear and that stands out.
Yeah, I think you've really hit on something very important, and that is quality control.
Mm-hmm.
I love UGC, user-generated content. I'm not a big TikTok guy, but it gets a little silly for me. But, I've laughed at some of them. But I like dachshund TikToks, and not because I have a dachshund. She's asleep on the floor right here beside us. But Annie Rue, the studio pup. But UGC is awesome, and I think it's fantastic, that we do that. But you said it right, man. We're drowning in a sea of mediocrity because there is no quality control, and so, I mean, Spotify releases like 160,000 songs a day, and there's a statistic floating around out there that I don't know if it's like I'm going to be getting it wrong, but tens of millions of songs that are on Spotify never get one listen.
Right.
And so it's like, what are we doing? Why would we want to just continue to add to that sea of grossness, when we have the opportunity to learn to be better? And I feel like that's a lot of what we do here at NCS is help people realize that just because they slapped a melody on some words, it doesn't mean it's a great song, even if they felt something. And it's so hard because people feel something spiritually or emotionally about their songs. And then when we try to help them see that they're going to sink in the sea of mediocrity rather than really be something that people are going to love, it's hard. I feel like I'm dashing some dreams sometimes. Drowning puppies or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, it's I guess whatever your ambition is, right? So if you want to create something that resonates with a lot of people and connects with a lot of people, then you've got to focus in on quality, and also not even quality like you got to spend $20,000 to make a song. Quality in terms of like a great song, a great creative moment that's captured in the right way that connects with people, because that's really the whole goal. If you want people to listen to your music, write something that connects you to them. And that's, we have a lot of just people cranking out stuff and content that, like you said, doesn't ever see the light of day. So it's I think there are a lot of people that are really negative about how the climate is right now. I think there's pros and cons for sure. Like the pro is that anyone at any point can create music and release it on your own. You don't have to go through a label. You don't have to go through a gatekeeper. Now, getting coaching and training around how to make that thing the best that it can be is where NCS even comes in to help shape those ideas. But yeah, it's a cool time because there's so many possibilities, so many opportunities that it will change again.
Yeah,
the pendulum swung so far that we have all of this music. So what will happen? Not speaking prophetically, in my mind, what will happen is we will come back to a more gatekeeper type of scenario within the streaming world, where it has to hit certain marks. We're already kind of seeing that with how songs and things have to perform to even be able to be visible by curators
algorithms
and algorithms.
Yeah.
So it's going to swing back to a more curated approach. That's what we do, right? Culture is like we swing way far this way, and we're like, okay, that's maybe too far. Let's bring it back. And that's just going to happen naturally.
I think that's great. That's very wise. I think it comes back to your why. And a lot of artists and songwriters that we deal with, especially in the beginnings of our relationships, a lot of times they don't seem to have a why. All they say is, I want to glorify God with my gifts and get my songs out there. And it's like, okay, that's noble in some ways, and we all want to be good stewards. Matthew 25, the parable of the talents. We want to be good stewards of what God's put in our lives, but that's not your why.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great, and that's, awesome that you feel that way, but that's not your why. NCS, our why is to empower Christian songwriters and artists worldwide by helping them be the best they can be, right? That is our why. And that's that's the grid that we put every program through. Every person we work with knows that that's what we're doing. We are empowering and encouraging, equipping. I'm a pastor teacher. I gather pastor, teacher, coach people like you around me because that's our goal. That is our mission. But a lot of these songwriters and artists that we start working with, they don't really know their why.
Sure.
They know they want to do it. They're in love with making music, but they don't really have a mission. And we spend a lot of time in our programs boiling down to mission, because if you don't know that, you really don't have the focus and the clarity you need to know the kind of music you need to make or want to make, or how to get better at that, how to capture it in the best possible way and move forward. So
it's like trying to write a song and not having anything to say.
Yeah.
You end up just like, what's the point?
Yeah.
What I have nothing to say, so why would I write a song?
And it's cool to be talented. We're glad you're talented, but it's not the talent that is really going to bring the kingdom results in our lives. It's really that sense of God's mission in your life that drives your messaging. Like in our artist development program, we talk a lot about your messaging and the way you're presenting, because you are 100% responsible for the way you present yourself to the world. Nobody else is responsible for that.
Yeah.
Nobody's responsible to make you a great songwriter, to make you a great artist. That is up to you.
Totally.
You're going to gather a team around you, but it really is about identifying that why. What if you had to tell God right at this moment what you think He's telling you is your mission? You got to have that. It's like having that elevator speech. Well, okay, I think that's a good basis to start with. So I'd like to move us into talking about mapping your next steps in music making, because I think we've established that you've got to have your why. It's all changed. It's easier and it's stupider in some ways, It's like, why aren't we awesomer? It's like, well, we're not, because we're lazy and we want the easy way, and technology has made it easy, but it's dumbed it down. It's made it mediocre. So let's raise the bar on that. So maybe we could break it down to some of the people we've worked with or some stories we know to help our wonderful listeners today maybe identify their next steps.
Totally. Yeah, a practical approach to our whole theme this month is how to make it in the new music business. And I feel like we have countless stories of people who have made it, again, at whatever level they're aiming for or aspiring to. A artist comes to mind, a friend of mine who has worked for a decade now on learning how to write songs. Very basic, not great songs in the beginning, all right? Like just very basic stuff. Started working with a producer. This is like 8-9 years ago. Started on this path of getting those songs produced. Still, they sounded great as a produced song, but the song wasn't awesome. So they just kind of had this like mediocre pool of songs. They kept digging in, kept writing, started co-writing, started getting feedback, moved to Nashville a few years later to be around people. Okay, not that you have to move to Nashville, but get around people that can help you be better. And now, like just a couple weeks ago, he signed a major record deal with Integrity Music. So and a lot goes into that, right? Relationships. He had a lot of his friends are there, and so it just made sense to bring him into the fold. But it was this long progression of like starting at the bottom, writing songs, and then getting better and better and better, and working with more and more people, and developing relationships along the way, not burning bridges and just trying to beat down the door. And it turned into a beautiful thing. Now he's like got the space to do what he wants and travel and tour and make great music. He's writing the best songs he's ever written. But that's a timeline of someone who you look at now and go, oh, they're signed to a record deal. I want that. But you don't see the whole process of the practical steps that they took along the way to get better. So that's just one kind of long example. But I think to break it down even further, people who we're working with at different stages, who are some that come to mind for you in our world?
Yeah, I love that story you just shared because, and we were talking in our earlier episode this month about this being a 10-year town. So your friend, just kind of catching on at 8 years plus, that just kind of shows that that's really true. Willie Nelson is famous for saying that he was an overnight success after 20 years in Nashville. And it's so true.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Howard Grip in just a moment, but I had a very unusual story because when I came to town in 1983, it was 187 years ago, I met Bill Gaither and Gary McSpadden. About 3 months after I was here, I was throwing newspapers out the car window at 3 a.m, making $60 a week. Didn't come here for the music business, came here for a church job that fell through. But I always wanted to get a song published and thought I would just die and go to heaven if I did. Met the Gaithers and Gary McSpadden. They signed me to a deal, like on the spot almost. And I had 20 songs recorded my first year and grew up to be a publisher, but that's very unusual. That's highly unusual.
Oh, yeah.
So for me, it wasn't a 10-year town, but I think in some ways, our NCS story, we had 10 years, we're exploding, and so I think that principle definitely applies. But let's talk about Howard. Howard is a wonderful friend of ours from Wisconsin, and he contacted us a couple of years ago about our NCS Pro Song Mastery program, which is our group coaching program that I've run for 10 years. It was the first thing I started back in 2016 when we started the company. And Howard came through that program, had a really good experience. He had been one of the guys that plays in restaurants, does covers in restaurants and bars, had gone through some addiction and some real struggles in his life, had come to Christ and wanted to do Christian music, but knew that he needed help in writing songs. And so he came through the program, started to do really well, and then he wanted to do our artist development program, which is in conjunction with Kevin McNeese at newreleasetoday.com, the Christian music's premier online Christian music media hub. And all the majors work with him, and hundreds and hundreds of independent artists work with Kevin and New Release Today. And so our artist development program, we're going to talk more about this next month when we talk about becoming a Christian artist. But in that program, I teach and our team teaches the songwriting, production, artistry, vibey side, and he teaches the business infrastructure side. And it's really great. It's a great combination. But Howard came through that program. You wound up becoming his producer. I'm kind of exec producing, and I worked through all the songs with him. He's done 2 EPs with us, and what a powerful testimony he is, not only of what we do in our coaching at all levels, but in his chutzpah and in his tenacity. I mean, that man, he's tenacious. And
he's working it, man. Talk about practical steps of like what to do next. He's doing a lot more than artists that I know of who live here doing music full time. He's out hitting the streets and he works a full-time job. He's not doing music full time per se. He's working it. He's
on 7 festivals this summer. Bratfest, and
got a band, worked out his whole set, and
opening for Danny Goki at Bratfest, I think it is.
Yeah.
That doesn't sound appetizing to me. I'm not a big Brats guy.
I thought it was Bratfest at first. I was like, I don't want to go there.
Bratfest. All these Valley girls at Bratfest. But Howard, he really is working it so hard. He was working it so hard that the distributor that he works with thought that he was buying fake streams, that he had bots out there working for his streams. And it turned out it was just not true. He was just investing in the right way. Talk a little bit about the musical development and him taking the next right step production-wise with you, because his music definitely grew from where it was, even in the demo phase of me working through lyrically
Yeah.
and melodically. But then
Yeah.
when you took it over, talk about that progression.
Yeah. I mean, we basically had, at the end of him working out those songs, we had just acoustic and vocal demos that he recorded at home, just real simple. And we kind of, I mean, part of the production process typically is like developing a sound, especially for a new artist who doesn't have anything released. He had done a couple acoustic and vocal recordings of like higher quality recordings that he'd released, but never like a full band, full production thing. And so we looked at some references, we got some ideas from what he wanted and what we kind of felt like the songs were needing and asking for, and just started going and making sounds. And we're like, yeah, that sounds cool. Let's keep going. And it became this kind of modern-ish CCM rock thing, but also has a lean towards like his roots, which is, a little, not classic rock, but a little more classic sound than like just a full-on modern production.
Yeah.
And which I feel like is important because you want to be authentic to the artist and who they are, and also, not overshoot something as a producer. So that really leveled up, not to toot my own horn, but that leveled up just going from like basement recordings to an actual professional quality recording, that now he can form a band around and he can pitch to festivals and label, different things because he has that quality recording.
He actually did a concept video too around one of his songs. And so he's invested financially. And I think maybe we should touch on that for a moment, because a lot of people still have the old school music business idea, fantasy that somebody's going to hear a song of theirs and go give them, a multi-million-dollar deal, and they're going to suddenly be on the radio. And it is just a fantasy, and it's so hard. We have to combat that all the time. I worked with an artist a few years ago, and she's like, "Can't we just throw out, a hit single out on the radio?" And I'm like, "Okay, lady, I don't think you understand,
that's
what
wild,
that even means,
Yeah.
And so you have to start where you are. You have to be who you are. You have to invest financially. If you want to produce. Right. If you want to have competitive music out there, it doesn't happen for free. Nobody works for free. You have to keep your day job or go find an investor or borrow some money. Don't recommend that. But you've got to do something if you're going to produce music. It's not just handed to you. What would it feel like to have 52 weeks of access to the right people in Nashville? People who've been making music for decades. People who can answer every question that you have about what pro-level music making is all about. Well, you can get that and more by joining NCS Community. Our community is a group of worldwide dedicated Christian songwriters who want what you want, to glorify God with your gifts and to get your music out there. I hope that you'll consider joining NCS Community today.
What if I detail out just a few practical steps for people, because it might help depending on where you're at in the journey, right? If you're just getting started writing songs, write songs. Keep getting better. Keep like, you're not just going to write one song at the very beginning and that's going to, carry you throughout. So keep honing the craft, keep trying. Once you have a couple ideas that are fairly fleshed out, you feel good about them, record them somehow, even if that's just a basic at-home setup on your iPhone, whatever it is. Capture them somehow, and then partner with someone as a producer role that can bring them to life. If you have the resources to do that and work with someone, then great. Otherwise, like we said, it's a very DIY climate right now in music. So go in the trenches and learn how to do it. If you have the time versus having the resource, then take the time to start fleshing that song out on your own. Buy a computer and do GarageBand or Logic or Ableton Live or whatever your software of choice would be, and figure it out. And And then from there, just continue to develop your sound. I guess the fast track would be to have a producer if you're not inclined to do that yourself, right? So save up your money, find a producer that you can that can understand what you're trying to do, your vision, and bring it to life. And then you kind of have a produced version of a song that you feel like is good, right? Those are kind of some practical steps of like how to get from I don't know what I'm doing, I don't know what my next right step is, to having a song that is done. Obviously, where NCS comes in the picture is to really refine and teach those core skills to help you get a better product across the board, right? Whether it's just the song itself, which is where we start, or it's production, or it's developing your sound and your artist vibe and all that. But that's kind of the practical like pathway for most people and most people that we've worked with, where and then you're kind of at, okay, you have a song, you have a product, then you can kind of start building a business around that versus getting any of that out of sequence. Does that make sense?
I love that. Absolutely. One of my favorite artists that I've worked with over the last 3-4 years is Patrina Pacheco. We haven't talked a lot about Patrina, but she has such a wonderful testimony. She's been on the podcast before. We did kind of an Oprah style kind of video shoot with her, on the couch, out at a fancy place. And I love that because I love her. I love her music. Helped her write a 10-song album a few years ago. And I love her story because she was a battered woman who actually had to escape for her life. And that wasn't the end of the story. She actually became an alcoholic after she escaped from the abusive guy that was going to kill her. And then she came back to Christ. She had grown up in the church. She came back to Jesus. And now she has a wonderful ministry where she sings her wonderful songs like I'm Not Her Anymore, and so many great songs that we wrote for that record. But what I loved about Patrina was she's just raw talent and not music biz at all. But she and her husband really invested in the right way and launched her ministry, with her record. They were very intentional. I was able to guide them through the process and help them navigate what could have just been a disaster, because there's a lot of people that'll take your money for producing your music, but that it doesn't mean that they're going to be really pastoral or coach you or help you make wise decisions. I know of another person who gave someone in this town $88,000 to produce 20 songs, and those songs should not have ever been produced the way they were, right? And so there are people that will just take your money and do whatever you think is right, but if you don't know what's right for your music. So that's what I love about NCS, because we have the opportunity to shepherd people and help them steward their finances, to steward it, we're not taking your finances over, but to help you decide the most wise choices, to make the wise choices for whatever dollar amount you have to invest. Whether it's in our community, which I highly recommend, or our mastery program, group, one-on-one, whatever it is. Not everyone is really ready to go record music. That they need some months, if not a year or more, to develop who they are as writers and to really fine-tune those songs to where they're worth going in and recording. Right.
To your point, like that's maybe one of the worst things you can do is to drop thousands and thousands of dollars on songs that just shouldn't be recorded. Like they're not ready. And we see that all the time. Somebody will come in and be like, "Oh, I've got 10 songs already. I've already got the songs. They're recorded. I came to Nashville. I did the whole thing, whatever." And we listen and we're like, "Whew, these songs, the songs themselves were not ready to be recorded."
Exactly.
And now, kind of a catch-22, right? Because you've got thousands of dollars invested into production for songs that you don't like. Nobody really wants to hear.
It's
sad. It's tough.
Yeah.
So I would say if you're in that scenario, caution there to go like, okay, because I think sometimes it's easy to go, well, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to move forward. I'm just going to keep going, which that's valid at some points, but.
And the studio, forgive me for interrupting, but the studio, it's like putting your songs under a microscope. And it brings out the flaws. It doesn't make them better.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times people think if they could just get guitars and bass and drums or whatever and keys on a song that it's going to make it great.
Yeah.
And it's not. It just doesn't. And I wish I had every dollar spent producing bad songs in Nashville just in one day. If I had that for just today, I could retire on an island somewhere because people do it all the time. And you know, we've made a commitment here. We have a studio. We're not really a public studio, but I've made a commitment to God and to my staff that we will not produce songs that we don't believe are good enough.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they don't have to be hit songs, but we're not going to do something that's just not ready. We're just not going to do it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So,
and no shame on like the engineers or producers that are making those songs, because people come in and just say, I've got this amount of money, I want to do this, and they're like,
I don't know.
Okay.
I kind of have some shame on them.
I guess depending on the person.
I'm picking up on my shaming here.
I'm thinking of the very like kind-hearted studio engineer who's like, yeah, sure, if that's what you want to do, we'll do it, you know, versus like there are definitely some I'm sure some I don't know what the word would be. Not crooks, but not snakes. That's too harsh.
You know what? Nashville is known for that, though. It's really sad. You know, even in the Christian thing.
Yeah.
You know, it's just so sad. There's such a bad rap for people, producers and engineers and studios who really don't do people a good turn by producing. Now, that's their thing, and they're there to make music. And so, if somebody comes in with a few $1,000 and they just insist and they're not open to any help or critique.
Yeah.
But it's such a dead end, you know. Yeah. And anyway, I'm sorry, you charlatan producers out there who are ripping people off. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to shame you, but
hey, no, that's fine. That's fine. I had a different picture in mind. The little producer just sitting there, just waiting for his next client.
I know, and I'm being so mean. I'm sorry. I don't mean to be like that, but we don't want to do that. We want to help you. I would rather you put money into a program to learn how to be a better songwriter than go produce a song that's just half-baked and not ready for it, you know? Why not? If you feel called to this, if you really feel this is a serious thing for you, even on a serious hobby level, invest in yourself. We have so many people who are from every age group. We coach people who are teenagers and college students all the way up to people in their 70s, right? Retired physicians. I currently have a one-on-one with a retired physician, and it's his hobby, and he just wants to do it, right? And then we are coaching people who are worship leaders, people who are working churches, people who are wanting to be artists. So it's at any level. Well, let's see if we can kind of land the plane here a little bit. I think it's been a good show today. There are resources on our site, our songwriting challenge that we've been talking about for 6 months now. It is a deep resource. It's 31 pages of information and insights about what we're talking about. We're digging deep, of course, into how music works now, but you can get such a broad understanding of the music business and of songwriting and artistry if you just download the PDF, follow along, go back through the podcast from this year, and if you want to talk with us, that's another way, you know. And I know the contact information is in the show notes. We would set up a time with you. You can go to the site, NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com, and on each coaching page, whether it's community, you can just go ahead and join community. We don't really offer a phone call for community, but if you're interested in the NCS Pro Song Mastery or one-on-one artist development or even production, you know, there are forms to fill out right there on the site, and then we'll set up a phone call. We'll talk about what you need. It's not a heavy sales call. It's more like, how can we serve you? Do we have what you need at this moment in your music making journey? And we'll discern that with you. We're not going to put you in a big artist development program if you're not ready for that. We wouldn't even mention it, right? But you can read all about it, and you can discern, pray, think about it, set up a call. We don't bite often, and we can just talk about what's next for you. Fair enough?
That's great. Great show today, man. It's awesome.
Enjoyed it. Big shout out to Jack Landis behind the scenes today, driving the podcast bus for us today. And so we're very excited Jack is around, and just appreciate all of our staff here at Nashville Christian Songwriters. So grateful that we get to do this every day. We don't work a day in our lives. We just get to have fun, and it's not all fun and games, but we do love what we do serving you. So thanks for tuning into the show today. Thanks to Bryant, such a talented young man, and excited to see what all God is doing in his life and
Why are you laughing?
family. Because I was thinking about how I threw you under the bus in a meeting. I threw him under the bus in a meeting the other day, unintentionally, but a very talented, skilled young man doing some great work here at NCS. So thanks for tuning in. Check out the site, jump on the mailing list, download the songwriting challenge for this year, and we'll see you next time. For Justin Gambino and Bryant Urich, I'll see you next time. Thanks for joining us on today's show. If you got some value, please help us share the love. Leave a like and a share and a good review. Be sure to check out everything that we have to offer you at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com. We'll see you next time.